Welcome back to SaharaTv. My name is Rudolf Okonkwo. She was the youngest female writer to sign with Faber and Faber in London. She was 21. That novel, called The Spider King's Daughter, went on to win the Betty Track Award. Chibundu Onuzo is the writer here with me as a guest of SaharaTv today. Her latest novel is called Welcome to Lagos. Chibundu, welcome to SaharaTv.
Thank you for having me.
So we are so glad to have you here. You've written a book that is making waves across America now that it's being published here in America. Let me start by asking you, why did you choose to be a writer? Your parents are doctors.
First of all, let me say thank you for pronouncing my name properly. Oh my gosh, I've been to so many interviews. Chibundu! So it's nice to be called properly. So why did I choose writing? So my parents are doctors. And in fact, when I was younger, I did say I was going to be a doctor because they have 4 children and none of their children were going into the medicine route. And so I just felt like to carry on the family legacy. But it just... it wasn't for me. I mean, I talked a lot as well. So people said, okay, you can be a lawyer too. And there were not that many professions that people thought I could be. So after I moved to England, I enjoyed history a lot. And so I told my parents that I was going to study history. And my dad was like, history? What are you going to do with history? And I was like, I'll do law after. Until tomorrow, they're still waiting for my law degree. But they were supportive. I think they wanted me to, at least, they would have preferred me maybe at a point to do a more career job and write on the side. I guess with Nigerian parents, it's not out of wanting to kill your dreams or anything like that. They just, are worried that you may not be able to support yourself financially. And when they're old and you should be looking after them, they will still be from their pension giving you money to buy food. Yeah,
but you are now pursuing a PhD in history.
Yes.
So what do you intend to do with that?
I guess I'll now be a doctor. Like, I said, see my doctor.
Do you plan to teach?
I don't know actually. So I'm coming to the end of the PhD process. I enjoyed the teaching, but I didn't enjoy the marking, which apparently nobody enjoys. I found that quite tedious. So I don't know. Maybe. We'll see.
Now, you were named on the list of 39 African writers with potential and talents who are, this is the exact word they said, that they define the future trend of African literature. What is the trend of African literature, the future trend?
Well, I think actually what's very interesting about that, of those 39, and also people who weren't included in it, like, with lists, there's always somebody that isn't there that's also doing great work, is that people are writing very diverse things now. People are writing science fiction, people are writing fantasy. So obviously thinking about that, the first name that comes to mind is Nnedi Okorafor. And maybe like 15, 20 years ago, perhaps the African canon was less diverse. You are just getting lots of different types of stories. People are writing YA. I'm thinking of my friend Emmanuel Iduma. He writes this sort of like criticism of art, and he's doing these essays that are kind of not in one format or the other, and people are just doing really interesting things. So it's a good time to be an African writer.
So are you following the trend? Are you making the trend? What is the trend? That's
what's the trend?
Yeah.
Well, the trend is that, well, first of all, more of us are getting published, but I don't think the stories are the same. So I think that people are telling very different stories. So in the sense that, is there a trend in, are we all writing the same kind of material? No. But is there a trend, like, are more African writers getting published in the West or in America or Britain? Yes, there's certainly a trend. And I suppose I was talking to this, it's like the Chimamanda effect. Everybody's looking for the next Chimamanda.
I wanted to say that because some people are saying that you are the next Chimamanda.
Amen. I want to blow.
No, you're already there. And that led me to this question. Hello, Nabila.
Yes, of course.
He wrote a review of your book, and he said that you portray the human character your portrayal of the human character is often very optimistic. When you look at Nigeria, where do you see the optimism? Why do you end up being optimistic?
Well, because cynicism gets you nowhere. Like, all the cynicism of our parents' generation, like, every time, so for example, someone like, Fela Durotoye, I was talking to my uncle about him running, and he was like, he's not going to win, they're not going to vote for him. I said, yes, that's why Nigeria will continue like this, because that you won't even try. You already say it's not going to work. I said, yes, that's why there's no light, it's not going to work. It's like, cynicism has not done anything for us. 60 years, it's time to be optimistic. Let us try. They say if you keep trying the same thing and you're not seeing any change, perhaps let us begin to try optimism. Let us begin to try, they say people don't vote. But I'm like, okay, I've been in Nigeria for elections, like for the past 2 elections. And I've been in England for elections for the past 2 elections. I have never seen the candidate for my Senate. He has never come to knock on my door and say, vote for me. So I'm saying that route has not yet been tried in Nigeria, where you will actually doorstep, not the one that you do rallies and you call some agberos. Those agberos are only a tiny portion of the population. There are so many people sitting in their houses that if only somebody can come and engage them, you cannot stop that political process if you can engage those millions that are apathetic, that are cynical, that are saying it's not going to work. So there's no other option but optimism for me, anyway.
Now, I was watching where you were talking about your PhD thesis, and you are looking at some African students in London when they were there who ended up governing Africa.
Yes.
So when you look at Africa today, where do you see the continent? Are you thinking that the hope for Africa will come from Africans who are abroad or from Africans who are home? So
the Africans so the thing is, for it to work, it needs to be a partnership, and a genuine partnership. So my problem with, and I'm also an African in the diaspora, is that sometimes, there's this sort of arrogance. We know how things work. We have seen things working in other countries, so just come and make space for us when we come back. And also, we want to zoom straight to the top. I worked in Goldman Sachs, so make me Minister of Finance.
They've been doing that. It's not like it hasn't been tried, but it didn't work.
But that's my point. Because you have to learn the local system as well. Is that you are bringing knowledge from abroad, but there's also knowledge at home. And it's when those two knowledges come together and there's a partnership, that's when you can build something sustainable. You cannot transplant models from Europe without adjusting them and saying, work in Nigeria. It doesn't, and this is like, I call it a sort of, colonialism is too strong. But this entitlement that you go home and you only want to live in Ikoyi, you only want to live in, that's how the white man came to and said, they've created area for us, give us salary 10 times higher, pay us in foreign currency, etc., etc., etc. And so I think the diaspora, yes, all the Nigerians abroad, they need to bring their talent, or use, even if you don't move home, it would be great if you could come and bring your talents, but you have to do it with humility. You have to do it with that. The people here, they also know something. I'm not some all-knowing, I know the best,
That brings me to this issue. You are in your novel, Welcome to Lagos. You have a very good image of understanding of what happens in Lagos, and I'm assuming, being a child of doctors, that you grew up middle class, upper middle class. How did you get to know what happens under the bridges of Lagos, and how did you go there to research?
I'm a Lagosian, so born and bred. So I think part of it is there's a lot of people run down the Pentecostal Church a lot in Nigeria. But I go to a Pentecostal church. I'm a Christian.
We'll get to that. Yeah.
We'll get to that. Okay. But my experience of the Pentecostal Church growing up was so positive. First of all, the church I went to is called Foursquare.
Foursquare.
Yeah, the Foursquare Gospel. We had an anthem. The church I went to, first of all, I would say very socially democratic. So there were people from all socioeconomic groups in the church, and we'd all be in children's church together. So I remember when we were growing up, our church was very close to Shogunle, which is like a poorer area of Lagos, and we used to go on street evangelism in Shogunle, and we'd be walking, We are soldiers of the Lord, in the name of Jesus. And we'll be walking, and we talk to people and a lot of the people that and that was the great thing about the church. My mom still says that you will see people with me in children's church. Their parents were they were street sellers. They sold things on the road. Some of their parents were vulcanizers. Some working class, very blue collar. But through the kind of being exposed to like an environment where both the children of the rich and poor are together, most of them are graduates today, most of them are lawyers, most of them have, I suppose, moved up in life. So yeah, I think going to that type of church meant that I saw parts of Lagos that weren't posh.
So from there you were able to understand different classes which showed in your novel. Now your main character Chike deserted the military, and then because of the abuse of the forces, the military that he was part of. And most of your characters, they tend to have higher ideals. How did you choose to portray that part of our humanity that most of the time is not covered in African literature?
I think like people underestimate how compassionate and also like honest like many Nigerians are. I'm not saying there's no corruption, there's no mago, etc., but like anybody whose car has a lot of people whose cars, for example, your car breaks down in Lagos, strangers will come and help you. In England, let your car break down. Now, so you got to dead there for the side of the road.
Triple A will help you.
But eventually, but like if it's raining, they'll be like, the rain will be splashing. The rain will be splashing you. And it's also because exactly over here, AA will eventually come and help you. But in Nigeria, where there's not that structure, human beings step in and they feel, the kindness, they feel the compassion. And I'm not saying that, it's all some like rosy, everything is all, people are always compassionate, etc., but it's there, and we take that for granted, and we only focus on the bribery and the corruption, and I think I've experienced a lot of kindness from strangers in Nigeria.
In the novel, Chike has this relationship with God and the Bible that they ran through, and when you look at the church in Africa or in Nigeria, let's use Nigeria as an example, how do you see the role of the church? Because it appears to some people, especially intellectuals, that most Africans wait for God to do things. They basically hand over everything to God. Chike did not pray for God to change the situation. Chike was doing things and still reading the Bible. How did that disconnect? What is going on with?
So I think for me, Chike as a character, I wasn't really trying to like explore the church as an institution, which is what you see in a lot of fiction. Yeah, the pastor is stealing their money now, etc. I wanted to explore the individual's relationship to the text, to the Bible in this instance, to the text that they use to assist their faith, and to build their faith on the text they build their faith on. Because with Chike, it's not about him he doesn't go to church. There's none of that. It's just as an individual exploring these ideas that are in the Bible, and that especially if you do go to church, sometimes you take for granted, you don't interrogate. And I wouldn't call Chike a Christian. I would call him an explorer. He's exploring faith and Christianity and all of that. And I haven't seen that done in fiction as often as I would have liked, and so I wanted to do it. So not the political aspect of the church, not what the pastors are doing. It's about the individual. What is his relationship to the Bible?
Yeah. Now, what do you see as the relationship between Christianity and poverty and Christianity and prosperity? No. But because that's, you can see that most of the characters, they had the opportunity to like, I don't want to give out some of these parts of the book. They had the opportunity to live a different life, but they continued on that path that they want to do the right thing, and even the ones you don't expect that will like a fine boy that will take that path. So what is the relationship? Because when you look at the church today in Africa, it depends on people being poor and preaching prosperity to them to keep them in the church. Meanwhile, like you pointed out, the pastors, the people who lead the church, are living a different kind of life. There is no pastor. I mean, Chike is a good example of someone who would have, if he were to be a pastor, would have taken a different path. So what do you?
Well, I mean, for me, I wasn't with the group. I was less thinking of Chike as a pastor, in fact, but I was thinking more of him as a leader. And I wanted to show, well, not deliberately, but I was trying to explore the power of leadership. So there's a documentary that I watched on Fela, and about how, Fela, incredibly for a lot of people, a controversial figure in his personal life, how Fela, the men that he gathered around him, like the street youth that he gathered around him, they interviewed one of them, and he said, Fela taught us not to steal, that we don't steal, we don't lie. And this is the legacy till now. The man has died 30 years later, and if you interacted with him, you don't steal today. No matter your situation, whether you're poor, whether you're etc., you don't. And with Chike, that's it. That's the power of leadership, even though it's just in a small group. And I mean, people say you shouldn't overestimate, or you should be thinking more about systems and less about individuals to change people. But where those systems are not there, the first step is for people to stand. And if you can stand firmly enough, other people will be drawn to that lifestyle and be like, because this person influenced me, this thing I'm not going to do. And
Now, before we leave the topic of the book, I wanted to know, why did you have characters like Oma? Why did she essentially abandon? It looked like she had no other options. For someone who is educated, a woman who used to live with a husband who was working for the oil company, to get to Lagos and had no other option. Why do you leave the characters without other options so that they could? It made it look as if it was easy for them to decide that this is what they are going to now choose, the path they are going to choose, because they don't have any other option.
I don't know. The thing is, so I interviewed my auntie who works with a lot of homeless people in Lagos. So in fact, they used to work with in Morocco, which was the government and scattered everything, and then now rich people live there. And they used to work with a lot of homeless people. And she said you would see it would happen a lot. People would come to Lagos, I'm coming to see my cousin, I'm coming to see this person. She said there's somebody that they gave them a fake address, they got there, they couldn't find the place. And that's how they ended up living under the bridge. That it seems fantastical that somebody can leave their house in Kaduna and come to Lagos on the strength of an address, no phone call, no nothing, and end up in Lagos and become homeless. But it just happens. Lagos is such a fantastical, it's science fiction.
It's true, it looks that way. Now let's talk about the publishing process. Most African writers who publish abroad, they complain about publishers trying to shape the novel into something that Westerners will understand. What's the experience like? Did the novel that we read or we are reading now a lot different from what you wrote? And how did you do the decision compromising? What happened?
I think that was more of an issue with the Spider King's daughter. I was a lot younger, as you said, when I was published. I was 21, and I think the thing you grow as a writer is that an editorial suggestion is a suggestion. It's not by force. So with the Spider King's daughter, there are some bits in Pidgin. The Pidgin in that book, I can now say it's whack, it's rubbish. And the copy editor, it wasn't even my editor. The copy editor would say, I don't understand. And then I try and anglicize the thing a little bit, and then it's not Pidgin and it's still not English. So nobody still understands this in the end. But when it came to Welcome to Lagos, with the editing process, which is the story part, that was fine. And then when it got to the copy edit, where they go through for grammar and all of that, the copy editor would say, I don't understand this. And then in my notes, I would reply, sorry.
That's how we say it. That's how we say
sorry. Because these are not kids. I've not hidden some magical plot point in Pidgin. But this is how the characters speak. Like, if you don't want to skip that part now, it's not by force. You will still get the general gist of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a big fight for you?
No, it wasn't a big fight. I think, as you just grow as a writer and you be more confident, you realize that it's my name that is on the book. It's not you that they are going to be abusing, that the pigeon does not look like pigeon when the book comes out.
And that the Igbo was not right. I saw the Igbo and it was right, and the Yoruba too was right. Okay, so that's very good. That's very good. Now, let me talk about Christianity and feminism, because that's a big thing in Nigeria. And I see so many parts in the book where, there was one instance where this character, the character was saying that the man was not going to the kitchen to help to cook. So what is your view about feminism?
Hey, do we have time?
We have time.
You should have asked me at the beginning, because I have a lot of views.
What do you think?
Well, first of all, I'm not a feminist, so I believe I believe men and women are equal. I'm all for equal rights, equal pay. Let's go there. But my point is that there has been a women's rights movement in Africa, and I'm not originally saying this. There has been a women's rights movement in Africa before somebody coined the term feminism. My great grandmother, she was a trader. She bought a car. She was economically empowered. You say, excuse me, are you a feminist? What is she using the feminism to do that she has not done? Like, you have and I feel for me that the naming of a thing is as important as a thing. And why are global movements always named by the West? Like, why? So, for example, you have things like Esusu groups in Yoruba land where women come together, female empowerment, and they loan each other the money, and then the next person and the next person. And I remember speaking to this about somebody, and they said, an Esusu group is like a cooperative. And I said, no, a cooperative is like an Esusu group. Why are you always the starting point? So no, as in, for me, like, and I feel like, so for some people, it's just a kidney of terms. Like, so if somebody who is a feminist is like agitating against female genital mutilation, for example, and I'm also saying that's wrong, and we can all work together now, but as in that I should carry, I'll take your card, carry member. No, I'm not taking your card.
So the latest issue about feminism was, you're aware of, I believe, the interview that Chimamanda had with Hillary Clinton. What do you think about that? What's your view?
You Sahara reporters, you like controversy.
No, it's not controversy.
You like controversy. You like why?
No, it's not controversy. We've not talked about it. No, but I just want to know
what's my view.
Yeah. Will you have issue with you changing your name to your husband's name, for instance?
Well, like, hey, I don't know if I would. I don't know if I'll change my name on my books. I don't know, to be honest. When
you've not thought about it.
Yeah, when the time comes, when it's time to cross that bridge, you build the boat.
Yeah. But I've not checked your Twitter account to know how you arrange your bio there, whether you have. I don't know, but is that an issue to you? Where, like, if you see something like Hillary Clinton saying I'm a wife, a mother, would that worry you?
For me, I cannot be dictating to people what they should put on their Twitter bio. I mean, the whole thing about the feminism movement, and this is my problem with it, is that, it's about choice. But then, that's the thing, everything becomes normative. There now become some right choices and some wrong choices. So again, sometimes it can turn into women policing other women's choices, but you have to police them in the right way. So, like, if somebody wants to put wife as their first kidney, what's my own? If somebody wants to put Secretary of State first, what's my own? However you are making your garri, be making it and drinking it. But I mean, this was my immediate reaction to it. But then again, it's something I don't feel strongly about. So, like, if Chimamanda, she obviously does feel strongly about it, and so she raised it, and Hillary Clinton, she changed her bio, man. That's the power of a Nigerian woman, Secretary of State. Yeah. Say yes, ma. I'm going to change it.
It's nice talking to you. Wonderful book. This is the book, Welcome to Lagos. I want to say Welcome to America, but you're already in America. Welcome to Lagos by Chibundu Onuzo. It was published yesterday in yes. America. So get a copy, please, and you will enjoy it. Thank you so much for being here.